toolsandmachinery.com.
Hi, I'm Jim, and we're here at M&M Tool again with another video. Today we're going to go through the guards on some of the table saws we have. The first one we're going to go over taking off the guards and either replacing with the riving knife in the case of the saw stop, or just taking them off, so you can make a dado cut or whatever you're going to do. So when you take off the guard, it's usually only if you're going to do a non-through cut, whether that's with a dado blade or just a regular standard kerf blade. Otherwise, you really should just leave the guards on, and that's the proper safety practice. In fact, if you look over here at this guard, this is the older design of a guard where it's connected in the back here. It's on this PM66 over here too, but as of, I think it's either 2012 or 2014, by law, saw manufacturers are required to have what's called a riving knife. And most of these guards have a riving knife on them, but essentially what it is, if you look at this little cutter right here, it separates the piece of wood. So when you're cutting a piece of wood, if you don't separate the piece, wood will have a tendency to come back on itself, and it traps the blade, which increases the likelihood of kickback. And kickback is when it basically shoots the wood back at you, and it shoots it with a lot of force, so it really hurts when it happens. So the riving knife splits the piece open. Well, what happened is a lot of guys, because these old guards were such a pain to take off, they just take those off and they put them to the side and they never put them back on. And since they do that, then you get more kickback. So hence why the law is coming out that you have to replace it with a riving knife. Most of the manufacturers have already done it. The reason they were given until 2012 or 2014 is so that they could put that process into effect. It takes time to get through your current run because you have contracts with your makers and whatnot. So it takes time to make those things happen. So anyway, most of them have done it, and we'll go through the ones that have done it. These ones, like I said, you just unscrew them and you set them to the side and you want to put them back on after you're done. Kind of a hassle, but the newer saws don't have it. Anyway, so on the saw stop, this is the saw stop. This is the one that has the flesh sensing technology that will stop the blade when you touch it. Really a cool concept. And they've got a website as well, sawstop.com. On the saw stop, when you want to change out this, we're going to change out the brake cartridge as well, which you would change the brake cartridge if you trip the brake. In essence, if it touches flesh, and it stops the saw blade. So anyway, so the first thing you got to do on all of these is take out the insert. Okay, on the saw stop, they have this little hook that you lift up and it disengages. Okay, and then we're going to come over here and we'll look at the inside. Okay, so here on the saw stop, it's really easy. The only one that's easier than this, actually the Powermatic's pretty similar, but the Unisaw is even easier than both of these, and you'll see that here in a minute. But all you got to do is reach in here, and there's this lever right here. You grab that lever and pull up, and then you just simply lift the guard out. Okay. So when you're doing, on most applications, it's just better to leave the guard on. You've got a dust collection port back there, which is really good. When you have a zero clearance insert like this, the dust has less tendency to go down below the blade as it does staying above the blade, just because the zero clearance blocks that dust from going down. So with the dust port on the back, I mean, life is good. The other thing is SawStop and a lot of the other manufacturers have gone to a smaller, less bulky guard. Again, we'll show you compared to the older style, so that you can get closer to the blade with your fence. And so the guard really shouldn't be in the way too much, but if it is, then of course you can switch out for the smaller knife or take it out. But for the most part, it's pretty easy to leave these on. They're just not that big and bulky anymore. You can see through them. They're nice and clear and easy to get through. I mean, they lift up nice. And then the other thing is you have what are called anti-kickback pawls. So when the wood goes through, the wood will catch on these and therefore be much less likely to come back at you. At least, if nothing else, it'll give you enough time to go back and hit the switch to stop the saw. So those anti-kickback pawls are really important as well. The other thing that I forgot to mention about riving knives is these old guards would move back and forth with the blade, but the riving knife is much, much better. It just moves a lot easier with it. It just makes life more convenient, a lot easier. The other thing is that when you go with a shorter riving knife like these ones, then on most of these, they are below the height of the blade. So therefore, if you're going to use a regular 10-inch saw blade and do a non-through cut, you actually don't even need to change it out because it's below the height. So for a dado blade, you need to take it out. But anyway, so now we're taking off this guard because we decided for one reason or another that for the cut we were doing, we didn't need this. And so we just would slip in the riving knife right here, lock it down, and we're done. So I don't know if we'll shine the light in there, maybe you can see it a little bit better. But you just lift that up like that, pull it out, and there's the little guides right here. Slide it in, and you're ready to roll. Now the other thing that we're going to show you right now while we're in here is how to change out the brake. So when the saw stop stops the brake cartridge, or when it stops the blade, there's a brake cartridge in here that engages the, we'll pull it out so I can just show you. Okay, so this right here, there's your little computer module, okay? So as soon as this senses flesh, or it'll also happen with wet wood, so you have to be careful. There's a bypass switch, so if you're going to cut something like metal or wet wood, you disconnect it. The ironic part though is, it has to, whatever you're cutting has to be able to take current away. What this does is runs it. You can go to their website and learn a lot more about it. But essentially, this sends a pulse through the blade, and then when the human body touches it, it absorbs some of that pulse. Therefore, it sends a signal, and then when that signal sends, there's a spring right here that launches this aluminum piece into the blade. So the blade stops right then, and then they've also got technology in here, and I don't know how it works, but I know it works, that drops the blade down below the height of the table. So within less time than it takes you to blink your eye, the blade is stopped and below the height of the table. Really cool. But whenever that happens, you have to replace the cartridge, and you also have to replace the blade. Some people don't, but it's bad practice to do that because it hits with so much force that it's going to loosen the teeth, and it's going to make it go out of whack. So you just have to replace the blade. So it's expensive, needless to say, to do that, so you don't want to do it. But anyway, so that's the cartridge. All you got to do, and we'll do it one more time in here, is you're going to take this cartridge and sneak it in here, and if you pay attention to this hole here, this hole here, and this hole here, that will help you reference. There's a big rod that you reference there, and then there's a smaller rod there, and then this little red lever right here sneaks into here, okay? So if you do that, then you don't even need to worry about this, just by doing that, okay? So we're going to sneak this in here, sneak it over the top of that top rod, and then over the bottom rod. Connect that in just that easy. And then we're going to take this, and that locks in there. So let's see, we're going to slide it in just like that, and then lock it down. Okay? And then you just slide, actually we're going to put the other guard back on. Lock that down, and then slide that in, and we are good to go.
Toolsandmachinery.com